Sarah Imhoff from the Concord Coalition. And just wanted to ask you, Sarah, one of the things that I read recently, and I just wanted to ask you if you can confirm it, is that if Congress does nothing and lets the Bush tax cuts expire, that the budget deficit and all the problems we're talking about here tonight with Congressman Peters, over time anyway, will go away. Is that a true statement? Can you add anything to that?
Sure, it's mostly true. We still are projecting deficits far into the future because we have structural imbalances with the big programs that serve senior citizens. So we have to change something about the structure for the way those programs are created to really minimize our deficits in a solid way. However, our outlook is actually better if Congress goes home today and doesn't do anything else the rest of the year or the rest of the next couple of years. And why that is they actually have to pass a new law to keep the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts in place. You often hear to those referred to as the Bush tax cuts. Sometimes they're called the Bush now Obama tax cuts, and that's fair. But we have extended those in the 2000s. We've extended them to 2012 because of our economic recession. If we were to allow them just to sunset as they're written into law, those tax breaks would go away, and taxes would therefore rise to levels that we saw before 2001 and 2003. In 10 years, that helps some, and even in longer periods of time, out 50 years, that gains a lot more revenues. Another change, if current law were to continue as is, we would continue to cut Medicare payment rates for doctors who see Medicare patients. They're currently scheduled to be cut by almost a third in the next year. However, that's part of our sustainable growth rate for the docs, the doc fix. However, we come in every year and actually instead of cutting them, we give them a raise. So we can have a conversation about whether or not we should cut or not, but we don't follow the law we've currently set in place for ourselves to help reduce healthcare costs. Instead, we add to it. Another one, the alternative minimum tax. We set this up in a way that unfortunately it's been creeping into the middle class at a pace we didn't want or expect.
Just real briefly, some of our readers may not know what the alternative minimum tax is.
I'll email you.
Okay.
I will speak out of turn if I don't email you factually. If we were to allow the alternative minimum tax to do what we've set up in law to do, we would actually be bringing in more revenues, but rather each year we patch it so that it doesn't encroach upon the middle class the way it has been. So as you can see, if we allow current law as is, we actually would have a lot more revenue in 10 years, 20 years, and 50 years than we've currently allowed ourselves to forecast based on our policy decisions.
You've done this all over the country, I assume.
Correct.
And generally, would you say that when you get all done at the end of a night like this, that people recognize the fact that we need more revenue, or do the people that do this exercise say, no, we have to cut spending on average?
Both. 100% of both. Taxation is a dirty word in this country. We don't like it. Nobody wants to say a few people actually admit they want their taxes raised, but most people don't like taxes. But when you put it in the context of the numbers we're dealing with today, or when you see how difficult it is to actually cut spending for education, when you have a son who's in Iraq and we're going to cut defense spending, it all depends on where you sit in life. What are your priorities? But people can't agree completely only on spending cuts, and nobody agrees only on taxation. So when you put it all in the context and you have different people at a table of different ethnicities, different age ranges, different times in their life, they're willing to take a look at all of it. They'll cut some spending, but they also find ways to raise taxes because they think that that's better than cutting investments in their children's future.
Do you find that programs like, the sacred cows, let's say, of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, do you find that people are willing to cut those, or they want to, or in the case of Social Security, are they willing to raise the retirement age, or some of each?
It's absolutely some of each. It is not uniformly, no, we won't raise the age. It is not uniformly, yes, we will. We find sprinklings of both. And again, I think more people are willing to raise the age than are not, but that often doesn't come across in surveys and polling done in this nation because people aren't sitting here looking at it in context. They're caught off guard. They're undereducated. They're 65. It all depends when you're asked the question and how you're asked the question. But when you put it in the context, people are much more willing to contemplate decisions they may not have contemplated before they came to the program tonight.
Do you break it? I mean, it seems to me like if I'm, let's say, 60, I'm a few years away from collecting Social Security myself, I'm going to have a much different perspective sitting at that table than someone who's, say, 25. Do you find that even the 25-year-olds, the younger people, recognize, that they're going to be coming up to that and they're going to want those benefits coming to them?
Or I find trying both for young people. Some people will say, I don't expect Social Security anyway, so I don't even want to talk about it. Other people will look across the room and say, you've worked hard for 64 years. I don't want to take your money. You should get it, rightly so. You have people that are 60 who are wealthy and say, raise the age, or tax me more, or give me less. You have people that are barely getting by at 50 or 70. And so it really depends. What are your circumstances? What was your planning for your own future? What is your means? What is your wealth? What is your life experience? It all varies.
So would you say in general, I mean, I know you've probably done this in a lot of places, that the conversations are a lot more reasoned when you do an exercise like this where people are actually voting, even though they're doing it in a compressed time frame,
Yep.
that people are a lot more reasonable, the conversations are more reasonable than the conversations that are taking place in Washington?
100%. There is no caucus leader here from any of the parties telling you how to vote.
Or in the case that happened the other day, I think it was Mitch McConnell said to his caucus, if you vote for, let's say, a tax increase, you will be primaries.
You will lose your seat. He's telling people they will lose their seat. And that's, the Republicans do it, the Democrats do it, depends where you're at in the electoral cycle. Absolutely, there is civil discourse with this exercise for a couple of reasons. First of all, people showed up here willingly because they're concerned. Second of all, we tell the story as the Concord Coalition with numbers. We diffuse the partisanship because it is a fact. What is the state of our budget? It is a fact that these are the choices that we have to make. And so when you take away the partisanship bickering, you present people with the facts and you facilitate them on this journey, they're very happy to discuss it. But if I came in here saying we're taking this off the table, or you must say this, or I'm absolutely liberal, I'm absolutely conservative, look at the tone that we've set. The Concord Coalition is nonpartisan. We provide fact-based information and we facilitate civic dialogue and civic stewardship. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.